Okay, hi everyone, welcome back to the second part of my game using the new set of rules on Muskets and Tomahawks. If you watched the first bit, you'll be up to date where we are, but I will do an update in a minute, exactly, because I've moved a couple of units, so I'll explain that in a minute. But first of all, I just wanted to mention that a couple of things I didn't do, which I maybe ought to have done. The first one is that when you make up an army list, they're either mixed forces or specialised forces. I'll just read that bit out. If at least half your force is made up of figures with the same troop type, excluding any figures that have been added by a force by the scenario, it's a specialised force. Otherwise, it's a mixed force. Now, my British are all regulars, so that becomes a specialist force. And in fact, the Americans are not. They're sort of a mixed force. It means that a specialist force, all the officers belonging to the majority troop type receive their troop type's talent for free. These talents are described in the Muskets and Tomahawks supplement in a minute. If you're a mixed force, you can spend points to buy extra command points. That's these little discs here, okay? At the start of the game at a cost of 5 points per command point. You can't buy more than 10 command points in this way, so that's quite a useful thing to know. I didn't do it, but never mind. We'll just move on. As I mentioned before, you know, this is my first game. I haven't played Muskets and Tomahawks before, so there's a bit of a learning curve, and I think I'm doing okay, but there's obviously a few things that I am getting wrong as I go along. I'm sure you guys will point that out to me, and some of them I realise myself anyway, because, you know, as you get a bit older, taking in all these rules, reading a new set of rules, it just doesn't do it for me. It just goes right over the top of my head. So I find that playing a game is the easiest way to learn. You learn by your mistakes, and then you start checking things as you go along. Of course, it's much easier if you've got an opponent, but of course, as you know, because of coronavirus, that's not the case at the moment. We're all doing our own thing at home, and so that's why I'm having a solo game, which isn't perfect, but it's okay. One other thing that I didn't do, well, there's a couple of points actually. The first one is movement. They only move at 4 inches. Most troops, light troops move at, skirmishers move at 5 inches. But if you're more than 24 inches away from an enemy, you can move another 2 inches. I haven't been doing that up until now, which would have meant that these guys would have moved up a little bit quicker. But anyway, that's by the by. In fact, these ones also, in fact, I'll do that now. I've just done another move, and I'll explain what I've done so far. So if you remember, the British over here are sort of looking quite strong at the moment. The Americans got a militia unit in the marsh over there, which are feeling a little bit they're feeling a little bit lonely. There's a lot of British coming their way. The American provincials are moving up. And over here we've got some irregular skirmishers, a rifle unit. Now the very first move I've already done. So this is the militia card. It was the Americans' turn, and what I did was I've moved back those guys over there in the marsh, because they were just getting a little bit too close to the British troops. So I've moved them back a couple of inches. I've realised now that that marsh is actually not just rough ground, it's very rough ground. So they move only at 2 inches, so I haven't been able to pull them back that much. But I've gone into also extended order, which means that if they're shot at, they hopefully, the shooters will have a penalty for them being in that order. So they might survive. They're also, of course, going to get the light cover for marshy ground. And although it's very rough ground, it is still only light cover because there's no trees. So they've moved back. That's the first things the Americans have done. Then it was the British go. Now the British, if you remember, have got all blue cards, so whatever they do, they were going to gain another point here, another little disc, a command point. So they decided to let the Americans move their irregulars, okay, which are these guys here. So they've moved up, but I've just realised I only moved them 5 inches, but because there's no troops within, oh, they are within 24, so they can't move any further anyway. So the irregulars have moved up to try and get them back into play. You'll notice they're still unloaded, and so are, in fact, the militia over there. But it was more important for the Americans to bring them back, because where they were going to get shot at by quite a few units. Now, to my mind, the British have got the advantage at the moment. They've already managed to get rid of 1 unit of militia. As you know, they had a pretty bad morale throw, and they went off the field. And they're hoping to exploit the advantage that they've got. The Americans have got to realise that they can't keep going forward. They need to go more on the defensive. So the militia are now pulling back, and ideally what they need to do is to go back into this wood. These 2 units are now in a better position to support them, and obviously they need to get these guys back into the fight, because they did shoot over here at one point, but now they haven't got a target. So that's where we are. It's now the Americans' turn again, but as you can see, they've only got 2 red cards, so they're going to have to use that card, which is the British regulars, but they will get a command point for using that card. So we're going to put that down. That gives them 2 now, so that's good. And the British are going to move, so I'll move those now, and then I'll come back and show you what's happened. Now, what I've decided to do here with the British is that this unit here can fire volley fire, which, as you know, has got a 16-inch range. Now, they have to fire straight ahead. There's no deviation at all, and everything within 16 inches of that unit will have to test. Let me just check this, because I'm not sure that figure further on is. Right, so that one's out of range. 2, 4, 6, 7. Nope, 6. These 2 guys, they're out of the arc of fire. This one's too far away. So there are, in fact, 6 of those Americans will have to test. And as you know, as I mentioned before, they're hitting on 0s and 1s. That's my wife walking past there, you might have noticed. Right, so let's just see what happens if I roll this dice. See what we get. Just 1 hit. So this volley fire, although can be very effective, sometimes doesn't do as well as you think, but it has got 1 hit. So I'll take off the nearest figure. Now, as far as I know, and I believe I've got this right, with volley fire you don't get any cover, and there's no reductions for the range. So they've taken the 1 hit, and that unit now has to do a test. So I'll roll the dice and see what they get. 6. Well, that's a bit better. Let's just see what that means. The unit doesn't have an officer nearby. It does comprise of at least 6 figures, so it gets a +1 for that. Right, the test is due to a volley fire, so it's -2 for that. So we started on 6, we're now down to 5. And also the fire was from a formed unit in close order, so it's down to 4. So if you look at number 4 on the conscripts, there we are, you can see there, number 4, move along conscripts to here. it's flight. So that unit must flee, which is probably not a bad thing really, since they want to go back towards that wood. So they will move at 4 inches. I'm assuming that because they're in a marsh, that the flight, which is normally 4 inches, will be slowed down to 2 inches. I may be wrong with that, because softening rules, when you flee, you don't take any deductions for the terrain you're going through. I haven't actually read that in the rules anywhere, so I'll take it that they only move back at a rate that they would normally move. So they're going to go back 2 inches. Let me do that now. Right, now the unit is going to flee, and I need to read this out to you because it's quite important. I've just realised this. If for whatever reason the unit cannot resolve its entire flight movement, roll a die for each figure in the unit. For each result that is below the unit's rally value, as indicated on the reaction table, remove a figure from the unit. And the movement counts as not entirely resolved if one or more figures from the unit were unable to move their entire movement distance due to enemies or the edge of the board. Now, the fact is, unfortunately for them, that they were fired at from over here and they have to move away from the unit they fired at. So, which means that some of these figures cannot resolve their full movement because of the edge of the table. So I'm going to have to, sadly, roll the dice for every man in that unit. And if you look on the table here, for conscripts, they're 7+, which means they need to roll 7+ to stay on the table. So we've got 9 men altogether. I've got only 6 d6 dice, so I should roll 6 first and then another 3. And I'm looking for 7, 8s, 9s for those to stay on the table. There's 2 out of the 6, and then the other 3 are 9. So, oh dear, this next militia unit are in a bit of trouble, aren't they? They've only got 3 survivors. So I'll take the 3 that actually weren't in the arc of fire. It makes sense to keep at least those 2 guys on, and I'll use this one as well. So all the others come off, which only leaves 3 guys left, and they are going to go back 2 inches because they're in that terrain. I'm not sure I've got that right. This guy can go 4 inches. So they're fleeing away from the direction of the unit shooting at them. So these poor militia, incidentally, they need 2 moves to reload as well. These poor militia are in a real bit of trouble, aren't they? So that's a good start for the British. And now we're going to move the other units as part of that move. I'll do that now. So I've moved the other 2 British units. In fact, I moved the light infantry here, moved them forward just to the edge of the marsh. And this unit here, I took away the fire marker, so they're now fully loaded. The officer, which wants to try and stay in contact with everybody, will move over here. They're still within 6 inches of this unit, 6 inches of that unit, and they're a little bit too far away from those, but they will get nearer next move. So that's the end of that move. So a pretty good move for the British again. The militia are really struggling in this game, which actually I quite like, because I've noticed in some skirmish rules militia seem to be too strong. There is a set of rules, I won't say which ones they are, where frankly you're better off with militia than regular troops because they're so cheap in comparison to the regulars. You can have twice as many of them and yet they still fire a very, very good effect. So we've had some games where really the game's dominated by militia, and that should not be the case. This does appear to treat them as they should be. They were militia. They never fought in battles. They were formed up, and when they did have to fight, they were very unreliable. And there were some good trained militia, of course. I'm not saying all the militia like that, but the majority of them really were not that reliable. And these rules seem to reflect that, which I like. So there we are. The last three figures of that unit are running away and not very happy at all. Right, so next turn. So it's the British turn, and as you can see, they've got 2 blue cards, and if they use one of those, they get another command point, which I'm going to put there now because I think the British are quite happy to let the militia have another move and gain a command point. And the fact is, when a unit is fleeing like that, they have to try and rally anyway. So let's just roll a dice and see what we can throw for these poor militia guys. 5. Okay, let's see what that means for them. Well, the unit's no longer comprised of 6 figures. It's not formed up. There's no officer nearby. It's not an officer, but is comprised of 3 figures or less, which it is. So that's -3. It's not looking good, is it? What else is there? Let's have a look. No, it's at a -3. They rolled a 5, which puts them on 2. And that means they must continue to flee. No surprise there, really. So they've now fled into the woods. Into a bit of safety, hopefully. So it's now the Americans' turn. They've only got a British regular card, so they're going to have to play that, and they'll get another command point. And so it's the British regulars to move. Let's do that now. Right, so the British units have moved, and what I've done is I've moved this unit up 4 inches, which now puts them in range for volley fire from these. But things are going well for the British, though there's no point in holding back. I've turned this unit round ready to go into the wood. They're still got 2 points of need loading, so it's going to take 2 moves to load them, but at least they're pointing in the right direction against this unit that are going to be going into the wood for the Americans soon. And the light infantry have moved into the marsh. Now in a marsh it's normally -2, but light infantry it's only in the -1, and their normal move is 5 inches, so they've moved up 4 inches into that marsh. And they're still well spread out, and they're facing slightly in this direction, so in a minute they can shoot in that direction towards the provincials coming up through the valley. So that's the British move. And then if you look down here, you can see they've only got 1 card left, which is the Forward Boys card, which they're going to have to let the Americans move. In fact, the Americans also just got 3 new cards. There we are, there are 3 new cards that the Americans just got, because they used all their 3 cards up. They got 1 red, which is Forward Boys, and a Provincials and a Morale card. So the British, they might as well let them use that Forward Boys and gain another command point. They've now got 6. We can start spending these soon. But let's just do that next move. It's up to the American now what he wants to do. This officer gets the Forward Boys card, and he can give an order to one of these 2 units. So we can either get these guys to fire on the British as they come up, or we can send these into the woods. I think the Americans need to try and slow the British down, so I think they're going to have to fire these guys in the hope that they're on target and do a lot of damage. to the British. Now if you look along the line, they're all within range, and all of that unit, including the officer, yep, he's just about in range. In fact, he's just about in range. So all those guys there are going to have to roll a d10 dice to see what effect the shooting is going to have. So let's do that now. So I've got 9 infantry and an officer. The officer will be that dice. I'll just do that one first. No, he's not hit. And then we've got 9 other figures, and we're rolling noughts and ones. 2 hits there out of 6 dice, and then another 3 to go, but no more. So the British unit take 2 casualties, and they must do a reaction test, which is 4. So let's see what happens to those now. And the unit has an officer nearby, so it gets +1. It's comprised of at least 6 figures, +2. That's a total of 2. The unit is formed up, which it is. You get another 2 for that, so that's 4. The unit test is due to a volley fire, and it's also the unit firing at it is formed up in close order, so it's -2. So it rolled 4. It's got 2 more from the various boxes, and that means they're on 6. And if you look on here, if you look on here, 6, they recoil or are shaken. So I'm going to give them a little shaken token, and that goes there. I've also given the Americans that fired 2 fire tokens and a bit of smoke. So yeah, the British have lost some more men. They've lost 4 total now, but they're still doing quite well. And now they've also got to draw 3 new cards because they've got none left. And that's interesting. Look, two clock cards. And the first one that came out was the red one. Then another green one. And then they've got a irregulars blue card. So first of all, I've got to take 2 more cards out. It's a militia, a blue militia, and a blue provincial. So no red cards for the Brits, which is rather a shame, really. But because the red card came out first, we also have to do a random event. So I'm going to roll that now. Let's see what we roll. 2, and then another one, 3. So stray bullets always find a home. There we are. This is what I'm reading here. So roll a die for each officer on the table. On a result of 0, they are removed as a casualty. Ooh, nasty. And cannot invoke the sacrifice rule to avoid death. So there's only 2 officers on the table. There's a British officer and an American officer. So let's do the British officer first. 5. So no, he's all right. And now the American officer, 1. Ooh, that was a bit close. So there we are. The random event. Nothing happened on that, fortunately. And as I say, the British got 3 more cards, and the regulars, a militia and the provincials, so the Americans can move on all of those. I think the British are going to start using these command tokens soon, don't you? And it's the Americans to go. Right, to speed things up a bit, I've done the next 2 moves. The first move was the Americans, they used their provincial card, so they've taken a fire marker off here and they moved this unit into the wood. When a unit goes into a wood that's in formation, it can still stay in formation, but it doesn't get any of the benefits of being in that formation. So in fact, they can't do volley fire, for example. But I've left them in that formation, but they're still going to be quite effective, and they are loaded and ready to go. So I've just moved them up. The other thing I did, which is a bit unfortunate for the, well, that was their move. That was the American move. Then the British did their move, and then they allowed the blue card to be used, the blue militia card. They gained another command marker, and the poor militia, you'll see they're not in the wood anymore. That's because I rolled a dice and they rolled a 2. Well, they were never going to survive that, so they've gone off the field as well. So there's no militia anymore on the table. They've all run off. They've had enough of this battle. They're going to leave it up to the provincials and the irregulars. So that's where we are. I'm now going to do the next American move, and they have 2 options, either the red forward boys card or the morale card. Well, that's going to be a nothing anyway. There's nothing that needs to do morale on the American side, so they can just waste that card and not do anything. And I think that's probably the best thing to do. So that's gone, and that's their move. They can't do anything else. Over to the Brits. They've got blue cards only, so they can either let the provincials move or the irregulars, or of course they can use one of their command abilities. The British are going to use, in fact, 2 of these points now. And what they want to do is they want to order, well, it costs 2 points to order a unit of 7 figures or less. So they're going to order this unit here to do a morale test, which they will do now. We rolled a 9, so they're going to be fine. That's going to remove the shaken. Now, interestingly enough, because they were only shaken and they removed it without any problem, they can also do another action, and they are going to open fire with volley fire on the unit that fired at them. Now you can stay in that formation, a close formation, if you've got at least 6 figures, so they're just about still able to use that formation, and they might as well fire now and try and do some damage, because if they lose any more men, they're going to have to change formation anyway. So they've used those 2 command points. They've come out of being shaken, and they're now going to do volley fire on that unit. So I'll just read that out. The rallying, when a shaken unit or unit in flight is granted an action, the action is automatically a rally action, so they have to try and rally. If the unit is shaken, it must roll a die and add the modifiers which apply to all reaction tests. If modified result is equal to or superior to their rally value, which for the case of British regulars, as you can see, is only 5 anyway, they rolled a 9, so they were well able to rally. The shaken marker is removed and can immediately resolve another action, like shooting. So that's exactly what they're going to do. So all this unit, in fact not all of them, 8 of those men are within the 16-inch range straight ahead. So the Americans will have to roll 8 dice. So let's move this over here. Let's roll 6 first of all, and we're looking for noughts and ones. So there's 3 ones there straight away, so that's 3 hits, and then the other 2, no more. So that unit has taken 3 casualties. I'll take them off the end there, keep them on that little movement tray, and they have to do a reaction test. Let's hope it's a good one. 3, right, let's see what happens to that unit. So that was pretty devastating, wasn't it? Incidentally, the British now have 2 fire markers, and a little bit of smoke. But this unit has to do the reaction test. So it has an officer nearby, so it gains a point there. It's comprised of at least 6 figures, so it gains another one. That's 2 up. And it is formed up. This is probably going to save it. So it's 4 up at the moment. But it does have some minuses to come off now. The test is due to volley fire, so that's -1. And also from a unit formed up, that's -2. So it gained 2 points there overall. And also the unit suffered at least 3 casualties from shooting. So it just remains on the basic 3 that they rolled. So it's on 3, as you can see. And if you look along the table to where it's known as this unit is a recruit unit. Provincials are recruits. It's actually got recoil and shaken. So it's a shaken unit, and it's gone back 4 inches. So it didn't like that, but it could have been worse. So there we go, they've fallen back. To have routed, they needed to have got 0, so lucky they didn't roll a 0. Right, so that's the British move. Let's go back to what the Americans have got. They've only got 1 more card, which is the Forward Boys card, the British card. So I think they'll play that card and gain a command point. And now the British have got to decide what they want to do. And I think what the British will do on this Forward Boys card is this officer, which is within 6 inches of the lights, which is another regular unit, will give an order to fire. So they will fire over here at the provincials that have just moved back. They are quite a long range. They're all within though. It's got a 24-inch range. They're only armed with a musket. They don't have a rifle like the American rifle, light infantry or skirmishers. They are musket armed, but they've got a 24-inch range. The unit is within 16 inches. So they will fire at that unit and see what happens. In fact, the British decided not to open fire with the lights because they would have only been hitting on 8s and 9s, because although they fire at 6, where they were was long range, so they would have been hitting on 8s and 9s. And although there's 7 of them, that really wouldn't have been. You might have got 1 or 2 hits if you're lucky. So I decided to move them forward because to get them a bit closer, there's no hurry to fire those guys. So they've just moved up to the edge of that marsh. So they still get the benefit of the cover of the marsh, but if they shoot, they won't be losing anything for firing over cover. So the next thing that happened was the Americans had to draw 3 new cards, and the last of the clocks came out. So we know what that means. It means all the cards except the ones on the table, but all the ones here are shuffled up again. So I'll do that now. So that's the end of the second part of the game. The Americans drew another card. They drew a militia card, so they've now got 3 cards, 1 of each for their all for their faction. Blue cards, 1 a regular, 1 provincial, and 1 militia. In fact, the militia has now disappeared, hasn't it? There are no militia. So what happens then if you draw a card that's for a unit that you no longer have? You get a command point. So I'm going to add that to their little pile. So let's just recap where we are. The British are pushing forward. The light infantry are now in the marsh. Their line infantry, they're both unloaded, so they need to sort of try and do something about that. I'm sure they will next move. And the American provincials, one unit's fallen back. They're shaken, and they've got one fire marker left. The others are just about to enter the wood. And the irregulars here are still taking their time and moving up the field. They need to get a move on. So at the moment, the British have the advantage. And we'll start, I'll do session 3 tomorrow and see how this game pans out. It does look as though the British are in a strong position at the moment, but it's too early to say that really. It can all change with a few dice rolls. And as Dom's already mentioned on comments on YouTube, that my dice rolls, they're famous for being terrible. So anything could happen yet, can't they, Dom? Right, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'll edit this and put it on YouTube as soon as I can. See you soon.